Hello, everybody. Welcome back to CloudWorld Live. We're doing special editions from here at Oracle CloudWorld. Delighted to have with us today Executive Vice President Mike Sicilia, who heads up Oracle Industries. Michael, good to see you.
Bob, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, I think it was the last time we chatted, it was at your Wall Street financial services industry event, and it was at the New York Stock Exchange. I think we're in the Alexander Hamilton room. So nothing quite so historic here, but
all right.
Still good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Yeah, we don't have the grandfather clock this time, but that's all right.
Yeah, Mike, so we're into day 3 of CloudWorld. There has been so much talk now about industries and industry innovation and specific use cases, industry specific large language models and more like that. So I want to toss out sort of a premise and see if you tell me if I'm anywhere close to the truth on this. It seems like, from when you first took over the industry's job, one of the things was sort of get the teams aligned, get everybody sort of rolling in the same direction, then get all those apps into the cloud. Then lately, it seems like you and your teams are helping businesses with these industry specific applications move to a level of innovation that those customers just have never been able to even think about before. And along the way, as the product heads from across the company, including you, start to get a more unified story, it seems like the industries team is really pulling a lot of what the best that Oracle has to offer into these industry specific solutions. So if I could wrap that up, you've gone from being sort of a special unit off to the side a little bit to being right at the core of what the company does. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it is, Bob. And I think really the compelling event for us has been the progress we've made with OCI. The progress we've made at OCI has allowed us as a vendor now partner to many of our customers to stitch this stuff together in a comprehensive service that allows us to have discussions with customers that are about outcomes.
Yeah.
When you're in the individual pillar conversations with customers, there's value. Right?
Yeah.
There are things that we can do better, faster, cheaper, or we think we've got a great set of features and a certain set of applications. But when you're in the boardroom or you're with the CEOs and you're having a conversation to say we can automate pretty much all of your business problems, it leads to differentiated conversations like the one we saw with Uber, which started with an OCI lift and shift conversation for their core assets, and now we're talking about comprehensively taking the market together, a service to our retail customers. Say, we're already running your merchandising, running your point of sale. How about returns and delivery as a service? And by the way, Uber will supply the drivers too, and the logistics around this thing. So that I think, we've seen just as much benefit from OCI internally as our customers have seen. We've been in the industries business for a very long time, but the industry's almost operated as ISVs, if you will. Many of them were ISVs that we acquired, to be quite frank. And now the knitting and stitching of these things together into a vertical solution stack, I believe it's unique to Oracle.
Yeah, Mike, just one detail on that to follow up on it. Was 42 acquisitions and everybody's now on OCI.
Yeah, not including Cerner. There were about 43 acquisitions, 42, 43, some big, some small. And that resulted in 62 cloud services that we had acquired, not including Cerner. And all of those are now running on OCI. The vast majority of those are also now running on autonomous technology as well. And we'll have the rest of that here buttoned up quite frequently. So those acquisitions that we made over time, some of them are running on competitive clouds, some of them are running on colos, colos that the company owned, all in OCI, all in a single perimeter. That's all done.
Yeah, I just think, Mike, from people I've been talking to and customers, all over the floor in meeting rooms today, what they're saying is, I need, in addition to this thing about digital shift, business transformation, I need to move faster. I need to get more deeply into the cloud. They're also sort of adding on to that, saying, but not in a generic way. I need to have these. You talk about operating technology. I need to be able to do this in a way that really affects the core of what my business is. So again, I think it's that notion of Oracle Industries moving from, I don't mean out on the periphery, but not fully into the mainstream. And it's really there right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even you look at industries like banking, right, that have been slow to adopt cloud technologies for what I'll call core mission critical assets.
Yeah.
Okay. Not to say that ERP and HCM are not core, because of
Right.
course they are, but banks had an easier time at getting their head around lifting and shifting that. And they said their core banking system,
Yeah.
their demand deposit accounts, their banking origination, things like this. It's not that they didn't have web front ends on this stuff, but truly moving that stuff to a service
Mhm.
was it was a bit scary.
Yeah.
It was a bit scary even a couple of years ago. Now, we have great wins in demand deposit accounts and banking banking originations as a service,
Uh-huh.
right? And customers taking that from, in some cases, moving actually from mainframe mini to the
Uh-huh.
cloud. I mean, that's the generational leap that
Yeah.
you have in place here. So I think you're going to see that really pervasive. I can't really think of an industry today that is saying, boy, I don't want to transform. And that transformation, as you've said many times, I mean, that transformation is really in the spirit of helping their customers have a better experience with them. And the
Yeah.
fact that we're providing the technology that touches their customers,
Yeah.
really allows us to have a business value conversation,
Yeah.
not just a technical conversation.
Yeah. And Mike, that specific point about taking some of Oracle's advanced technology, weaving that more deeply than ever before into the customer's operations and their thinking, their strategy. You've mentioned a couple anecdotes this week that I just thought were stunning. What is that? The one that you've done with NVIDIA, right? So this is on an edge device. You can do genetic sequencing. Is that in an hour?
Well, so there's a couple of different things in sequencing in general. So,
Yeah.
so you've got pathogen sequencing.
Yeah.
You're looking for like COVID pathogens and stuff like that. And we're partnered with a company called Oxford Nanopore, who has incredibly portable devices. Where you can take, they're about the size of a flash drive,
Yeah.
an old flash drive. I'm not sure anybody uses flash drives anymore, but some people
Yeah.
would remember they compare. And you take those out and you can sequence somebody, and you can sequence a plant to look for foodborne illnesses. You can sequence, cattle, you can sequence human beings just with a simple sample. And we can turn that pathogen sequence around using an OCI service in about 20 minutes.
Mhm.
A whole genome sequence. Originally, we could turn that thing around in about, 1 to 2 hours. Whole genome sequence, very, very thing.
Yeah.
With the partnership with NVIDIA and looking at GPUs, we've had people, third party people come in and benchmark this thing, and they think they can turn a whole genome sequence around in about 30 minutes, 32 minutes, right? I mean, and that's really without trying to tune it or anything like that, right? I think that if you look at, well, what's the benefit to humanity for that, right? It's good business, but what's really been striking to me is the benefit to humanity. I mean, you talk about precision medicine. If we really want to get into precision medicine, which I think we do as a country, as a world, as a globe, you got to know a lot about the patient. And knowing a lot about their DNA and RNA is incredibly important to create and deliver precise medicines for that person. Until this breakthrough with GPUs, it's not impossible to process a sequence, but very expensive, very time consuming, very storage intensive, and just not great. In fact, Larry mentioned yesterday, the Nanopore example. Early days in portable sequencing, companies were just throwing the data away because it was too expensive to store, right? And boy, wouldn't you like to have some of that data in the time of a pandemic to be able to look at, de-identified. We're not taking anybody's personal information here, but to be able to look at particular, molecular simulations or pathogen simulations on a population when you know something about their DNA. So, good. Just one example, Bob, of something where I think, putting this stuff together with our partners like NVIDIA is going to have a dramatic impact on the world.
Yeah. And Mike, one other one here that I thought was profound. It shows a direction of where Oracle's a company's going. And also, I think the way you getting inside the operations of your customers on an industry perspective. So bring this up. The other day you were talking about an example. How about an MRI machine? Right. So somebody goes in, it'll do something very localized. And you were saying, if you can decouple all the compute out of the MRI machine, put it somewhere else, let the MRI machine do what it does better. Would you just talk about that? Because again, there, I think that's something where, 2-3 years ago, people would have said, "What you're crazy." Right? It never happened, right? But it is happening.
Right. Yeah, if you think about the expensive imaging in medicine, right? MRI machines, CT scans, these sophisticated machines, they're very compute intensive. They have onboard computers, they have onboard storage, onboard processing, and there's some amount of that that's necessary. We have a theory that we can take some of that compute and move it to the cloud. And you do two things by doing that. Number one, you can remotely calibrate the machines. The problem with onboard compute is you got to send people out to go recalibrate these things. They're sensitive to seismic activities, or sometimes they just need a little tune up like a car. It's a big labor intensive, expensive process to do this. If we can move some of that compute to the cloud, we get the benefit of actually perhaps changing the instructions for the machine at any given time. So that if we want to look for something different, we want to look for something novel and new, we can reflash, if you will, all the machines at the same time. The other thing is we can dramatically reduce the cost of the machine and dramatically reduce the cost of the process. And therefore, you think about, why is things like passive scans become, I think, I mean, you can look at, I'm not a doctor, so, but you can look at any disease or anything that's wrong with people, and there's one thing it all has in common: early diagnosis makes a huge difference. So if you're getting an MRI for your hip, why not just scan your whole body at that given point? And why not figure out if there's anything that we see really early where we can make a tremendous difference in the quality of your life? Good for the patient, good for the payer as well. Much cheaper to treat problems before they become acute. And, just that simple shift of taking, a very sophisticated, expensive machine, dumbing it down a little bit on purpose, but actually putting a lot more intelligence in the cloud. And, having the cloud, remotely instruct that machine on what to do. I think I don't think it's that far-fetched.
Mike, one other thing on healthcare. I know yesterday in a session that you're in with Travis, and he told this interesting anecdote. He said there were some customers he'd go into, and they'd sit, the conversation he said would start with the customer and, hey, at Cerner, he said, you're my biggest line item. And he talked about how profoundly different the conversations are now when you come in Oracle Cerner. I just thought that was a great story.
I think, right. I mean, Cerner historically is, for any given hospital system, very well could be the biggest vendor that they had, because Cerner was providing the EHR, providing other technologies as well. And, obviously that was a big spend, but we're able to now go in and say, okay, maybe we are your biggest line item, but what is your total line item? And, we can have a conversation around, well, what if we did it for, line item minus X? Because if you think about, if you take all of your bespoke assets and you look to shift those to OCI, we can get rid of all the hardware you have running those assets. And actually, we can put a cybersecurity perimeter around this stuff today that's costing you a lot of money to manually control, because unfortunately, healthcare is a big target. It's a shame, but it's a huge target for bad actors. Then we think about the back office applications, supply chain, HCM, and all these things. And to say, what are you spending on all this? And then what are you spending on the integration of all these things? What are you spending on regression testing of all these things? And we're seeing wins, and we're seeing people come together and really rally around this story, saying, well, I was going to go with another ERP system, but the fact that you're my most critical vendor for EHR tells me maybe I should look to you as well. And can we have a pennies on the dollar conversation, which is what you get into in that situation.
Mike, it's interesting seeing Judson Althoff from Microsoft on the stage with Clay today, talking about, that partnership. And I was thinking when I saw Judson there that, I don't know, this was 4 or 5 years ago, but Microsoft made a pretty dramatic change in its sales organization, where they said, we're going to have less sort of sales support people, and we're going to put more very, very technical people on the front sales line. They said, because the more technical they are, when they're out at a customer site working on a project, they can say, hey, we got this done. Now you also could do this or that. It seems like with your industries team now getting deeply inside the operations of your customers, and really into the fundamental operating technology of stuff that happens, it seems like you've got a similar opportunity. Your organization is able to see and be aware of potential problems that could come up, help fix those for the customer, but also to kick open new opportunities to help them become the sort of digitally powerful businesses they need to become.
Well, look, on the vertical business side of this thing, I mean, we have our employees that are badged in to our customers. They don't come to work in an Oracle office, or they don't work from their home. They work at the site, in a utility, and a nuclear power plant, in a hospital. I mean, as 2 examples. So we have people that are certainly on the ground, on the ground in the customer every single day, and that gives us lots of intelligence into future problems that we may be able to help solve. So I think we have a similar thing. I would say for us, the one differentiator is, versus Microsoft yourselves with lots of developers and things like that, and not that we don't do that as well. We're selling and delivering for business buyers too.
Yeah.
And having the business intelligence for us is probably the area that, we're double clicking on.
Yeah.
In addition to, having technical support and technical staff in there as well.
Mike, one other thing I wanted to ask you about, and then, you get the last word here. It was interesting, you've talked before about sort of it's a telco company, but it's also a retail company.
Yep.
It's interesting, right? As you create this more high-powered industry-specific technology, you're also in some ways giving your customers the opportunity to go outside their industry lines and pursue new opportunities. So what's it like with the boundaries now across the industries that Oracle serves?
Yeah, telco is, I think, a great example, Bob, of saying, at least in the United States, the price that telco providers can charge customers is, I won't say it's fixed, but it's fairly capitated, because you have some of the big suppliers come out saying we're gonna freeze fees for 5 years or something like that. So it kind of puts the vice on everybody else, right? So what do you have to do? We have to think about alternative revenue streams. If you can't increase revenues, you think about increasing your margin, or you can't increase revenues in your core product. You got to have an ancillary revenue stream, or you got to increase your margins in your existing product, right? Latter, which is not necessarily a glorious play, right? So then we start to think about, well, how can we streamline your retail operations? If we can think about how we streamline your retail operations, and how we think about from the time somebody clicks on your website to the time the device shows up, and we can reduce the cycle times with merchandising, assortment planning, making sure you have the right inventory at your stores, making sure you have the right inventory in warehouses and stuff like that. We can do that. Now, we're in both of those spaces, right? We're in the space of providing the support for wireline and wireless, for network infrastructure, for customer billing, for all that, but we're also in the retail space as well. So that's that. The other thing is, I said on the network side, well, if you can't increase your prices from that, where's a lot of the money coming from? The telco, it's come from over-the-top providers and streaming providers, things like this today. What if we give a platform to our telco customers, what we call the enterprise communications platform? It's the very same platform that we build our public safety suite on, that we showed, Larry talked about yesterday, 5G and satellite connectivity that never goes down. We give that software platform, that the application developer platform, to our telco customers, so you can create your own apps and your own content right on top of our network infrastructure. And by the way, it's abstracted. So there's a big 5G transformation going on. It'll take a while. There's a lot of 4G LTE still working. What we don't want to have to say is that you create over-the-top content, you create your own streaming services, you got to go switch all that out when you switch out to the other stuff. So I think these are the kind of things, since we're to your point, in the business, we're having business discussions, we're having technical discussions, and when you bring that all together, that's where the value comes from.
Yeah. Mike, one other thing on that, sorry, before we stop, and that was the Alloy program, from out of Clay's team. So telecom seems to be a natural in that you are helping, by partnering with your customers, you're helping them drive into new business opportunities. Absolutely. I mean, I just, that to me is sort of like, what the future of the cloud could be.
Well, from a very practical standpoint, telco is a very, attractive partner for us for Alloy, because you got to have a place to put the machines. Yeah. And telco tends to have pretty big data centers, pretty big infrastructure. And frankly, as they virtualized a lot of their infrastructure over the years, and from traditional big iron to, virtual settings, they got space and have capacity. So it makes a lot of sense. The other thing, I'll go back to what I said about differentiated business models. Well, with 5G, the B2B explosion, the B2B business has really grown for telcos. The B2C is, fairly, I don't know if you know anybody that doesn't have a device today, right?
Right.
So the B2C business is, relatively saturated. The B2B business, particularly around 5G and IoT, becomes something for them that I think is very attractive. So for them to be able to take the best of our cloud services, resell all of their own IP on top of it to their vertical customers, we think it's a great win for them and a great win for us. Yeah, perfect. Well, Mike, thanks. Any final thoughts you wanted to share? Bob, I appreciate all of your excitement, and I think you're right. It's the greatest growth economy the world has ever seen, and I think industries are going to play a big role in leading that growth for the world, not just here at Oracle. So appreciate your time. Absolutely, Michael. Thanks to you, folks. Thanks to you for being with us here at Cloud Wars Live at Oracle CloudWorld. This is Mike Sicilia, Executive Vice President of Oracle Industries. We'll see you next time.